clump, clump. There's usually a loud noise as I walk. I have had hypertrophy, or one leg being longer than the other, since I was a small child. My leg length disparity required correction, so I was always had to wear a heavy orthotic device. I was the last student to change classes at school, so my mother had to drop me down and pick me up every time rather than strolling with friends. I was unable to join in, despite the fact that everyone else looked to be having a great time. I can't even begin to count how many times I've gritted my teeth in frustration. Thankfully, the procedure proceeded smoothly, and I was able to return the gadget to middle school. However, I remained reclusive until I was an adult because of the bullying I had in elementary school. I was a horrible public speaker and lacked self-confidence. But I reached a turning point. It surprised me that I was put in charge of the sales division because I was the kind of guy who was constantly anxious and had terrible public speaking skills. I eventually grew to like talking to people and started to feel more confident in myself with the support of my more experienced coworkers. Then one day, I got an invitation to a reunion of my primary school. I made the decision to go since I was feeling better. I informed the organizer via email that I would be attending. My name is Kevin. I am a 27-year-old employee of an IT company. I relocated to New York from my hometown and haven't visited my hometown in a long time. Unusually for me, I even bought new clothes for this reunion in my hometown because I was so excited about it. I wanted to show everyone how much I'd changed, even though I knew it was simply dumb pride. I knew that this feeling was probably a remnant of my past inferiority complex. However, wanting to surprise everyone was a huge step forward for me and an indication of my developing confidence. With renewed vigor, I returned to my hometown on the day of the reunion. My hometown was alive with activity, especially at night, something I hadn't seen in a long time. Was it always this animated? I was a little taken aback by how much the town had evolved. As I made my way toward the reunion place, I periodically looked up the address on my phone. As I walked into the bar, the site, I saw that it was already packed with my former classmates. I knew these people only from school, even though they were all my classmates. My last encounter with them was more than 10 years ago. Even my own recollections were hazy, yet a few people appeared to be recognizable. Is that who that is? Is that possible? Just as I was getting through, I felt a sudden tap on my shoulder from behind. Are you correct, Kevin? Long time. No see. You moved to New York, I've heard. How are you doing? Everyone looked around as if that was a signal, and before I knew it, I was encircled. Some had gained weight, some had gotten taller, and some were even starting to worry about thinning hair. Some were unrecognizable without glasses. There was warmth and nostalgia on every face. Nobody made fun of me. As a matter of fact, the majority of the folks I spoke with were kind and encouraging, even if they were merely flattering. They claimed that I cheered up and changed completely. Some even thought I looked cool and called me gorgeous. All of the compliments were quite flattering, but the last one seemed like a throwback to when people were dubbed nerds and introverted. However, I was doing fine and had become friendly with everyone. I think it was the experiences and self-assurance I picked up at work. Though I tried not to show it, I was genuinely giddy with joy. It wasn't only the boys, of course. I think part of the reason I felt so fantastic was that even the girls began to perceive me differently. I used to be quiet in class and keep a low profile when I was in primary school. I therefore felt as though I was in a dream because there were so many girls around. Since getting to the location, I have found myself thinking, I wish I could show this to my younger self multiple times. I was glad to see familiar acquaintances again and had a pint of beer in my hand. But to be really honest, there was one female in particular that I really wanted to see at this reunion. Ashley was her name. The belle of our class was Ashley. She was an extremely attractive girl, almost like someone you'd see on TV, with her big eyes and smooth hair. She was also kind, collected, and impartial toward all. I thought about her a lot when I was in school. I had no friends, therefore she was the only one who came to chat to me and showed that she cared about me. Because of her generosity, I was able to avoid being a chronic absentee from school, and over time, the bullying I experienced decreased. She was practically a lifesaver to me. I decided to pay Ashley another visit so I could repay her kindness. I glanced around nonchalantly, looking for her everywhere. Amidst the excitement and the shouts of women saying, "What have you been up to?" In long time, no see. Ashley was called out by someone. I quickly turned around and saw a woman in a navy dress standing among some females, her graceful back turned toward me. Based on the recognizable outline, I assumed it had to be Ashley. She had a very unique aura from the rest, even when viewed from behind. I took a deep breath and hesitated before approaching and talking to her. Abruptly, she spun around and flipped her hair. Ashley was the one, without a doubt. Her looks were still youthful, but if anything, she had become an even more elegant and stunning woman. What about Kevin? Ashley. Long time, no see. I approached Ashley and got up in front of her. However, I was uneasy when I was in front of her. I could see burn marks running down her neck from her face, but they were concealed by her hair. They reached out and grasped a glass of wine from her, severely tarnishing her formerly flawless beauty. Since our last encounter, she must have been involved in an accident of some kind. I produced a wide smile, hoping Ashley wouldn't notice and trying not to stare at her scars. With a gentle reply, Ashley said, "It's been a while. How are you doing?" She was obviously aware of what other people thought of her physical appearance, but it was impressive how she chose to ignore the inquisitive looks. I had fallen in love with Ashley then, and she remained the same. It's unbelievable that she showed up at the reunion with that appearance. She has a monstrous appearance. Should I be her, I could not stand it. I heard vicious murmurs coming from behind me. I turned to see a few girls making barely audible remarks about Ashley. Ashley listened to them and remained cool-headed. I think she was used to this kind of thing. I was astounded by the girls' cruelty. Back then, they were good friends of hers. Ashley had changed, but did that make them feel satisfied? I felt a twinge of pain and a building rage. How are you able to utter such dirty things? It doesn't seem like Ashley has done anything wrong. Please don't belittle my fiancé. Out of a protective instinct, I said something ridiculous like, my fiancé. Was there not a more appropriate way to put it? Though sorry, it was already too late. Now, there was no going back. What? You weren't even in our conversation. Could you please just leave us alone? With a contemptuous reply, the females moved on, vanishing like the tide. Ashley gave me an inexplicable look as she seemed relieved to see them go, but also contrite for bothering me. She had an embarrassed, irritated, and depressed look. This was not how I wanted to see her. Ashley said in a quiet voice that only she could hear, "Let's go outside and get some fresh air." It seemed like a smart concept to me. Silently nodding, we both slipped out of sight of the reunion. The full moon appeared taller and more exquisite than normal when it was outside the bar and beneath the chilly winter sky. We located a park close by and took a seat on a bench. An occasional chilly air drifted in. I quickly located a vending machine and purchased 2 hot beverages. Ashley hadn't spoken anything since we got out of the pub. I happily offered her a drink, hoping to lighten her melancholy. "Here, would you like some warm coffee or cocoa?" After expressing her gratitude, she picked out a coffee can and held it in her hands to reheat it without cracking it. I apologize about the earlier. I overreached myself. I impulsively called you my fiancé because I just wanted to stop talking to them. I had no idea why I had called you that. Maybe I was more inebriated than I realized since I was in a strange place. I was perplexed when Ashley eventually looked up. "Kevin, you truly caught me off guard. We've been apart for more than 10 years, and now we're engaged. However, I was glad that you stood up for me against the betrayal. Ashley grinned broadly and replied, "Thank you, genuinely." Instead of reprimanding me, as I had anticipated, she thanked me and grinned broadly. Her compassion was exactly the same as it was in elementary school. Always happy, thoughtful, and not taking anything personally, which left me even more perplexed. I was encouraged by her unwavering strength and curiosity in her whereabouts. Ashley, sensing my thoughts, spoke tentatively at first. "I have to tell you about my scars, Kevin. I sustained these injuries after the cafeteria where I worked caught fire a few years back." She moved her hair aside and revealed the scars to me. There are more scars hidden under my clothes. I could see them well even in the faint moonlight, and I was on the verge of averting my eyes. A senior employee who attempted to shield me from the fire perished when the building fell. She removed me by using her body as a shield. Ashley talked about that moment while crying. She claimed that she was still having dreams about the fire, waking up from them, and finding it difficult to fall back asleep. I can still clearly recall the fire every time I look at my scars. I used to be scared that people would see them, but now I'm just happy to be here. I have to live fiercely in honor of the one who kept me safe from the flames. I haven't been thinking favorably about what happened until recently. I was at a loss for words. She was living so resolutely in spite of the adversity. When I was made fun of and teased for having a disability, I used to think badly of myself. Ashley, though, was making progress and doing her best to deal with reality. I blurted out, "Ashley, you're an amazing person, just like you were back then," out of nowhere. I was encouraged by your usual treatment of me in elementary school. I guess I still had a long way to go, but I thought I could pay you back today. Ashley started crying as soon as I said this. What have I done? I quickly extended a handkerchief to her. I apologize for crying unexpectedly. I make an effort to think optimistically, yet occasionally I wish I could revert to my previous state of mind. I was thrilled to hear that I had changed from you. Ashley answered, "Thank you," grinning despite her tears. Her face was as bright and happy as I remembered it to be, even though she was now at ease. Relieved, I thought back to my own experience of walking with a limp while wearing an orthotic device. During lunch breaks, Ashley would bring my school lunch and carry my textbooks. She would come play games with me inside, sometimes by herself, because I was unable to go outside and run about with other kids. It will surely get better. Even in my most jaded and cynical moments, Ashley was the only one who ever made comments like that about my leg. She gave me encouragement and informed me of the sites we could visit after my leg treatment was finished. Ashley was my constant source of support and encouragement. I wouldn't have been able to resist pessimism and have made it this far in life without her. It was my time now. Like she did for me years ago, I wanted to be the one to help Ashley. I had made up my mind. "Hey Ashley, how are you doing? Would you like to have dinner sometime? I truly hope to see you once more." I had never asked a woman out before, to be honest, but I had nothing to lose. I felt that it would be best to just tell her how I felt. "Are you certain you can go out with someone who has a lot of scars? Would you rather make a date with someone attractive?" Although her response might be interpreted as null, I found it to be more than sufficient. I said, "It's all right. I'm never alone anyhow," I said, displaying my lack of dating experience. Ashley laughed. I was happy to see Ashley laugh aloud for the first time in a long time. We began seeing each other more frequently after that. Unexpectedly, Ashley had also relocated to New York, where she was working and saving money for a procedure aimed at skin regeneration. Ashley brought us modest lunches to eat in the park on our outings. Even though we couldn't afford to travel to fancy places, I was glad to see Ashley's hardworking and modest side. We fell in love with one another right away and began dating. Although the reunion incident and the fact that we were from the same town contributed significantly, we never made the clear statement, "Let's be together," or made our sentiments known. Our time together became second nature to one another. I started to actively consider marriage, which is how I realized how our connection was developing. No matter what, I wanted to be with Ashley for the rest of my life. She always made my life happier with her brightness. Therefore, I wanted to be there for her. It also made more economical sense to live together than apart from each other. That's how I started to envision our future. Then it dawned on me that I hadn't even told her that I was in love with her. Though I'd never told Ashley outright, "I love you," I was very certain we were dating. I also wondered what Ashley thought of me. I felt so insecure all of a sudden. I didn't really know how to handle my feelings because this was my first relationship, but I needed to make sure Ashley and I were compatible. As usual, I was waiting for Ashley in the park one weekend. She seemed a little panicked, as though she believed she was running late. Ashley said, "Sorry I was late." I'd assured her that I had arrived early and she wasn't even late. "Hey, how about we take a trip somewhere else for once? Perhaps to a department shop or another location." "What?" Ashley was taken aback by my idea and responded, "But I made lunch for us." I opened my bag to show me the soft drinks and sandwiches in a plastic container. I proposed that we have lunch on the department store's rooftop. Ashley grew apprehensive as she noticed the strange mood and inquired, "What's going on? Why the abrupt alteration?" I took a long breath, scratched my head, and admitted, "I'd want to purchase you a ring. Although I have never gone to a jewelry store and don't even know what size ring to pick for you, it would seem good if I bent down and took out a ring. I'm sorry, it looks like everything is out of order, but I want to wed you, Ashley, immediately." I wish to purchase a ring for a proposal in the department shop. Ashley froze, mouth agape, then burst out laughing when I said what I intended to say. Even though I knew it was awkward and that she should have been laughing, I started to become irritated when I saw Ashley giggle through her tears. Just as I opened my mouth to say, "Stop laughing," I saw that Ashley was crying. She laughed and wept, saying, "Too late." I was momentarily confused as to what she was saying. "You already said I was your fiancé." Hearing such remarks made me immediately calm down and offer an apology. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Following that, we were formally married and moved in together. Now that we had greater stability in our income, I was able to obtain Ashley multiple procedures. The scars from her burns are significantly less visible now that she has endured the difficult treatments. She grinned and remarked, "Now I can finally wear a wedding dress." I'm grateful to have met Ashley every time I see her beaming smile.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. "Take care." That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.